What's up, y'all? In this video I wanted to do a quick rundown on the Panther tank, and I wanted to do this particular tank because while it's a very good tank if played correctly, it's a tank that is very frustrating to use because you have to play it in a certain way. So with that said, I'm going to start off with the stats of the vehicle before I get into some gameplay tips. Now, first thing about this tank is that unlike the Panzer IVs, which as you progress through them, their armor becomes worse and worse relative to other tanks, has very good frontal armor, at least on the hull. You have 80 millimeters on the front of the hull, 40 millimeters on the side and rear, 100 millimeters on the front of the turret, and 45 on the sides and rear. The front upper plate of your hull, you get about 130 to 115-ish. In the lower front plate, you get about 150 to 160. The front of the turret is the weakest point on the front of this tank besides the buggy barrel. The front of your mantlet is 100 millimeters thick, and it gets progressively worse the farther up and down you go. The cheeks of the turret, these little zones here, are also weak point. Like the biggest zone of the mantlet, they're only 100 millimeters thick. Most tanks you fight can, at least at medium range, penetrate the turret of this tank from the front. So that's something you'll need to keep in mind. The sides of the hull range from about 50 millimeters, 45 to 50 millimeters, to straight 40 on the lower, and 50 millimeters for the turret side because of the angle. The rear of the tank is about 45 to 50, and so is the rear of the turret. And the commander's hatch is 80 millimeters pretty much all around due to the rounded shape. Now, the main reason for using this tank is because of this long-barreled, high-velocity 75 millimeter gun. When we look at the ammo here, you'll see there's only two ammo types you get with this tank: armor piercing and high explosive. The further variants of the Panther, if you look at the tech tree, are the ones that get armor piercing, composite rigid, and some of the other ammo types. However, the armor piercing shell on this tank is very good. It's got 158 millimeters at 100 meters, 500 meters you get 134, and at 1000 you get 121 millimeters of penetration. It is, if not an identical gun, just on a different mount than the tank destroyer, the Panzer 470. Pretty sure it's the same gun as that. So if you've unlocked that before this tank, it has a gun that is almost identical to that one. Now, the thing to note about the ammunition on this tank is it has a high velocity, probably the highest velocity of any tank shell at the battle rating it's at, and of the tanks that'll fight. It has a muzzle velocity of around 930 meters per second, which is a decent 160 meters per second faster than the muzzle velocity on the Tiger tank. This makes the gun a lot easier to aim at range. It's got a flatter trajectory and makes it a little bit more accurate. Now, the mobility of this tank is good and bad. The top speed is a pretty good 55 kilometers per hour, which is 16 kilometers per hour faster than the Panzer IV tanks it replaces, and it can reach that speed in around 20, maybe 18 to 20 seconds, so it has a similar acceleration to the Tiger tank. It has a hull traverse. It's not bad, but it's not great. I would say it's around the middle to maybe the lower end of the middle. The thing that really kills this tank mobility wise is poor reverse speed, about 4 kilometers per hour, probably one of the slowest reverse speeds in the game, and poor turret rotation, about 6 degrees per second. That's a little bit slower than the Tiger. The Tiger already has a pretty slow turning turret. To put it in perspective, this tank has a turret rotation speed and the same as the completely useless Panzer IV-J. If you don't have that tank, you probably don't have it for a good reason. It sucks ass. Its turret turns slow, and it has nothing that the Panzer IV-H doesn't give you with a better turning turret. This tank, like most of the other German tanks, also has pretty good gun depression. It's slightly worse gun depression than the Panzer IVs at 8 degrees instead of 10, but you get slightly better gun elevation at 20 degrees up. This will let you fire over some cover and fire on inclines better than, say, Russian tanks. Now, one thing I should note, and this could change, probably will. The 75mm cannons for the Germans behave slightly differently than some of the other guns. From me playing them, it seems like when you shoot a target with the 75mm guns, or at least with this Panther, the shells produce a lot of shrapnel when they enter a tank in a cone, and then the shell itself will detonate inside the tank but have a very small blast radius. So what this basically does is that when you shoot an enemy tank, you get a cone of fragments, like a shotgun blast, from where you penetrate the tank. This is a little different than Russian shells, for instance, which will generally produce low shrapnel when they enter a tank, but have a very large blast radius and large amount of fragments when they do explode inside the tank. So you have to be a little bit more accurate with this gun, but you can go through pretty much any armor you come across in it. So how do you want to play this tank? The poor side armor, poor turret rotation, and reverse speed pretty much make this tank bad choice for close quarters combat. You have good frontal armor, but you have weak points on the front of the turret, and if they get around to your side, pretty much any tank in the game can penetrate your armor. You want to play this tank as a long-range, sniping, and supporting fire tank. Your high-velocity gun with high penetration lets you do that, and with ease. Your good frontal armor, which is about the same size, slightly larger than the turret in relation to the whole size of the tank, makes it so that less accurate guns are more likely to hit your hull at range than your turret. You want to keep people as far away as possible so that they are inaccurate and can't get a good shot on your weak points. You can go through almost any armor you come across, so put that to good use. Get in a good position. Usually I try and find some good low cover that I can fire over that'll protect my hull and that I can reverse behind fairly quickly, even with the slow reverse on this tank, if I take some damage. Now, another thing to note with this tank is this Panther is the start of where, as you go farther down the tech tree, the modules take more and more research points to get. So if you do have spare Gold Eagles lying around, I would not blame you for unlocking the parts with it and the fire protection equipment, because it can be very frustrating to have your Panther be damaged early on and not have parts for it. So that about wraps it up for my brief guide on the Panther. You want to use this as a long-range tank, put your good and high-velocity gun to use, and snipe people from where they can't get back at you. If you liked the video, or feel I left something out, feel free to leave a comment. If you want to keep updated when new videos come out, feel free to subscribe to the channel. I've been trying to get these out more regularly, or if I don't, in larger batches. And I would appreciate it if you found the video helpful to leave a like, and if you didn't find it helpful, leave a comment, tell me what I could do better, or something I messed up on so I can fix it. And I'll see y'all next time.